Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is the George here, and I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday and had an awesome weekend. I know one person who didn't have an awesome weekend, John Campia. I don't know if you guys heard, but Campia apparently couldn't get his access to D23, and I get it's frustrating when stuff like that happens, but damn, he was just really angry, and I don't know, it feels like his streams lately, he's just been going a bit crazy. I don't know. That's just my observation. But yeah, I was watching his stream before I came on here, and I don't know, it just kind of felt like very boomerish, in my opinion, his takes. But anyways, I hope everyone is doing well, and I will talk a little bit about D23, I guess, before I get into the topic. And yeah, with D23, I mean, overall, I felt like Marvel should have been the most exciting thing, but it wasn't. Instead, the excitement came the day before in the panel that came before the Lucasfilm stuff. The TV shows look exciting for Star Wars. I'm glad we're getting Inside Out 2. Even though we didn't get any footage of Indiana Jones 5, I'm very excited for that film. And Harrison Ford, just seeing him get emotional about this character that he's been playing for many years really meant a lot. And I'm looking forward to that. It's probably one of my top 5 most anticipated movies of next year. And so, with the Marvel stuff, I mean, it's disappointing we didn't get a Fantastic Four casting announcement, but honestly, they might still be working stuff out. Maybe there's some castings that are unofficial. At least we got a Thunderbolts casting announcement. The roster looks pretty good, but I wish we could have maybe gotten Abomination in there. I think one of the websites added Zemo, so I guess Zemo's going to be in there. But overall, I'm looking forward to that movie. I'm glad we at least got some casting announcement. And also the Captain America New World Order stuff sounds pretty exciting as well. So I'm very much looking forward to that. So before we can continue, I don't see anyone in the chat right now, but as I stated in my previous stream, let's behave in the chat. Remember, your behavior in the chat reflects on when I eventually have guests on these streams, if you're going to be a guest on the stream or not. So let's all behave. Let's all get along. And this is also probably going to be the last stream I have on a weekday. I think from after this, I'm just going to be having streams on the weekends. And oh, there's someone in the chat, and it's Andrew Casali. What's up, Andrew? Yeah, I know. I was just talking about John Campia, how he was whining in a little bit of D23 before I got into the topic. And I'm just reminding everyone about how to behave in the chat. But yeah, Andrew's one of my good pals. He's been a great supporter for this channel, and he's also my fellow Tobey Maguire Spider-Man fan. And yes, I will be talking some Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in here because it's a key movie in this journey on how I got into talking movies and how much movies mean to me. So I'm going to get into that real quick. So as far as the whole movie thing goes, I remember growing up, I just loved watching movies. I was always watching movies with my family, particularly my dad. And I remember one of the first movies I watched in general was Toy Story. I'm a big Toy Story fan. I did a review series of Toy Story on this channel. And yeah, I always had it on VHS as well. But yeah, I've always loved Toy Story. It's probably the movie I've rewatched the most times. And hold on. I was watching Campia, and to be honest, he's kind of right. We knew this stuff already. Yeah, I know. And in fairness to D23, I will say this before I continue. In fairness to D23 at the same time, this was their first one post pandemic. So I get it. There's not a lot for them to really do. But I just think Campia, I don't know, his attitude just seemed very off. But back to the topic at hand. So Toy Story was one of the first movies I remember watching. I didn't watch it in theaters. It came out a year before I was born. It was Toy Story 2 that was actually my earliest memory of watching a movie. I remember watching that on the big screen. It was 1999 that came out. I was 3 years old when that came out. And I remember I've always been a big fan of Woody and Buzz. I used to carry my Woody and Buzz toys around all the time. And to see them on the big screen, that was great to watch. I love Toy Story 2. Not as much as Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 3, but I still love the film. And I remember growing up, I watched a lot of those Disney classic movies even before Toy Story 2. I remember watching Lion King on VHS many times, Aladdin many times, Jungle Book, Pinocchio. Pinocchio was very dark as a kid, and I didn't realize how dark that movie was until I got older. But I also remember, I'm trying to remember, did I watch Tarzan in theaters? I can't remember. I remember watching that a lot of times on VHS. A lot of the Disney Renaissance movies I watched a lot as a kid. Like those were the days. Now, I also remember watching like Emperor's New Groove. That was a funny comedy. I remember watching that a lot. So like I remember watching a lot of Disney movies growing up, but the one movie that I remember watching a lot as a kid, it was like the first PG-13 movie I watched was The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. And Brendan Fraser, he's actually been in the news a lot. Hold on, let's see here. I love Toy Story 1 as well. And yeah, yeah, I'll get back into Toy Story real quick. I just want to get into the Mummy, Andrew. But yeah, Toy Story, like I'll get more back into Toy Story, but so let me just share the screen real quick. Okay. So, all right. All right, so yeah, I'll get into Toy Story again shortly, but I want to talk about The Mummy because this was like one of the first PG-13 movies I ever watched. Like this was essentially my Indiana Jones growing up. Like I would later watch Indiana Jones. I love Indiana Jones, but it was like The Mummy that was like the first PG-13 movie I ever saw. Not in theaters, but I remember watching it at home, and then like I would watch it all the time at my grandmother's. My grandma had it on VHS, so we would watch that movie nonstop. And as a kid, I was just very much into monsters and scary stuff. Like I watched like a lot of Scooby Doo. One of my favorite monsters was the Mummy. I always was fascinated by mummies. I remember one time at the library, I even got a book about mummies. Like that's how much mummies fascinated me. And so the Mummy was probably one of the first PG-13 movies with Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah. Yeah, this was part of my childhood, and this was what got me into other live action movies. Yeah, Brendan Fraser back in the day. He was one of my heroes, like one of my movie heroes growing up. Not gonna lie, he was. But back to Toy Story. Yeah, I think what really helped Toy Story resonate with me is Woody and Buzz were my favorite characters. I'm gonna get back to Toy Story real quick. I didn't spend enough time on that film. And I think the voice acting plays a big role in that. Like Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, uh, funny guys that I enjoy. But also, you had Don Rickles as Mr. Potato Head. You had Jim Varney as Slinky Dog before he passed away. Wallace Shawn, John Ratzenberger, Annie Potts. You had a great voice cast for this movie. And the animation at the time, I'll say the only thing that doesn't really hold that up that well with this film, with the animation, is Andy's design. I'm gonna see. I just discovered this website today. I was gonna use Letterbox actually, but I found this instead. View all the backdrops. Okay, no images of Andy there to show. But yeah, no, Andrew, I'm with you. I love the first Toy Story. This was the film that I watched many times as a kid. I'm surprised the VHS never broke. And Toy Story 2 was, as I said, was the first movie I saw in theaters. Or at least I remember watching in theaters. Maybe it was something else, but this movie I remember watching in theaters. In Toy Story 2, we were introduced to Jesse. We also learned about Zurg, Prospector, learned more about Woody. Yeah, I love all the Toy Story movies, including Toy Story 4. I know Toy Story 4 isn't perfect, it's got its flaws, but I enjoy that movie for what it is. But yeah, other movies I remember watching in theaters, early on, The Emperor's New Groove, the Tigger movie. Not sure why, But yeah, those were some of the early movies I remember watching in theaters. And the thing is, I used to go to the movies a lot with my dad. We used to go watch movies every Sunday at the theaters. One of them I specifically remember was The Emperor's New Groove. And like that was very special. So my dad really helped me get into movies. I remember sometimes we even watch movies together at home. One time it was actually through him that I learned about the Rocky movies. It was funny. I came into the room he was watching TV, and it was during Rocky 4 when Rocky and Drago were fighting. Like that was my introduction to Rocky as well. I didn't watch a full Rocky movie until years later. Let me see if I can find Rocky 4. But yeah, like I always remember that. Like him fighting Drago. Like that was my introduction to Rocky right there. Let's see, Andrew. Yeah, look, I like the Lightyear movie, but I felt like I don't know. I felt like Zurg was kind of wasted a little bit. The more I think about it, I still like the movie though. But again, it Zurg was kind of wasted in my opinion. But back to Rocky. So this was basically my introduction to Rocky. The Rocky cast right there. And another movie that I remember watching a lot as a kid was The Wizard of Oz. That was another movie that got me into watching movies as well. Let's see. That was a movie like I watched a lot of my grandmother's because my grandma, before she had cable, she only had like those channels like 2, 4, 7, like those news channels that like people would always have. But she didn't have like the other channels, but she had like a bunch of VHSs. Like I said before, that's where I would watch The Mummy a bunch of times, other Disney movies, but also The Wizard of Oz I watched many times. And it's one of my all-time favorite movies. One of my top 10 favorite movies like before the 1960s. Judy Garland, Ray Bolger, Jack Haley. I'm probably mispronouncing some of these names wrong. But yeah, I love watching Wizard of Oz. And it's like one of those movies you have to watch every Thanksgiving, not just because it's on TV, but it just feels like the right time to watch it. And I'm going to look at the chat. Yeah, I remember hearing about that Rocky 4 was Dolph Lundgren's first big movie. I will say this with Rocky 4 and Dolph Lundgren. He didn't say that much in the film. In Creed 2, that scene where he meets up with Rocky, he says more in that first scene alone than he does like the entirety of Rocky 4. Like that I will give. So let's see. And if it weren't for Apollo's death, we wouldn't have. Yeah, Apollo's death was heartbreaking. Yeah, the Creed movies. I love the Creed movies a lot. The first Creed was a big surprise, and that's like those are legacy sequels done right. And I hope to one day talk about the Rocky movies and the Creed movies on this channel. I think Creed 3 comes out March 2023, so I don't know, maybe that'll give me an opportunity to talk about those movies. We'll see. Maybe I'll do separate reviews or do a stream talking about the Rocky and Creed films. I haven't decided. But so Wizard of Oz, another movie that I watched several times. Yeah, this is like my dad and my grandma that got me into watching movies. Like it was through them that I watched a lot of movies. Like yeah, I watched movies with like my mom and sister as well. And one of the other early theater experiences I still remember was back in 2001, the first Harry Potter film, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or Philosopher's Stone, depending on where you live. And like I've been trying to do like a monthly Harry Potter review series on my channel as well. But yeah, Harry Potter. I remember watching this film back in the theater. I was I think 5 years old. And the only other movie I remember watching in theaters that year, I'm pretty sure I watched a few other movies that year, was Shrek earlier in the year. But yeah, Harry Potter, I remember watching that movie and just being amazed at seeing like that three-headed dog Fluffy. But like it got me into Harry Potter. And Harry Potter was one of the first film franchises that I really paid attention to. And the first 4 movies I watched before reading the books. So like it was really my sister that helped get me into Harry Potter. It wasn't my dad, grandma, or my mom. It was my sister that got me into Harry Potter. Now I didn't see Chamber of Secrets in theaters because they had the spiders, and I didn't like the giant spiders. Spiders used to freak me out. But yeah, I remember watching Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, depending on where you live, and just being amazed by it. You know, Harry became one of my favorite movie characters of all time. And we watched Harry Potter, I remember we watched Shrek in theaters. And I remember the promotion. I still remember the promotion for Shrek. Promotion for Shrek was one of my favorite promotions for it. Like it was they were showing like the I'm a Believer song on Nickelodeon a lot. They were doing like music videos. And this is one of my all-time favorite animated movies, Shrek. Shrek's one of my favorite characters. There's the story of how like an ogre showed that he's more than an ogre, how he fell in love, how him and his noble steed, the donkey, went to save the princess. Yeah, I love Shrek, and it's like a parody of Disney movies essentially. And I remember growing up, I used to think this movie was a Disney movie until I found out it was really DreamWorks. But we're gonna move on to the next film. But I will say Shrek is one of those movies that I've rewatched so many times over the years. Like this, Toy Story, Harry Potter, The Mummy. Like a lot of these movies I still watch today and I still love a lot today. Like it's not like these were like one and dones. Like I watch these movies a lot throughout the years. Who doesn't love Shrek, Andrew? I like it's really hard to believe anyone that doesn't like Shrek. Yeah, Mike Myers was great as Shrek. Eddie Murphy's great as Donkey. Cameron Diaz. I think Cameron Diaz is actually coming out of retirement for something. Yeah, the All Star song. Shrek had a great soundtrack. Like the songs in Shrek always stood out to me. Like Shrek and Toy Story to me had like the best animated movie songs, like best animated soundtracks growing up for me. Like I love those soundtracks. So we're gonna move on to the first superhero film that I ever saw, and the film that got me into superhero movies. So growing up, I was into superhero movies, and I used to watch like a lot of the animated stuff: Batman the animated series, Spider-Man the animated series, Batman Beyond, Justice League, X-Men the animated series. But this was the first live-action superhero film I saw. Now I didn't see this one in theaters actually. We used to live by a movie rental store, so we rented it back when you were renting tapes, and we rented Spider Man. I think like around the time it was coming out. I think it was like before I started kindergarten or something. But yes, Spider Man. Now I've always been a Spider Man fan, but this was the movie that really got me into superhero movies. And you have this awesome cast, and Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Kirsten Dunst, uh, yeah, James Franco, Cliff Robertson, Rosemary Harris, J.K. Simmons. Everyone played their roles perfectly in this film. It was, to me, the perfect superhero origin story of its time. And yeah, like I remember like being scared of the Green Goblin as a kid. Like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin was really scary as a kid, but this was the movie that made me fall in love with superhero films. And I remember, even though I didn't see the movie in theaters at the time, I bought all the toys. Like I remember like my preschool graduation, my grandmother got me these big size Spider-Man Green Goblin action figures. I remember buying the Green Goblin figure with the helmet that would come off. I even like have the poster of it. And yes, I know Andrew's excited. Yeah, it was my first superhero movie as well, and yeah, I love Toby as Peter Parker. Listen, I like all three of them as Peter Parker and Spider Man. Toby's always probably gonna be my favorite because I rewatched all those movies so many times. Yeah, it was a great origin story in my opinion. And here's the thing, I feel like origin stories today in superhero movies, it feels like they got to be these big event films. This was focused on telling like an origin story. And yeah, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin is iconic. He was an awesome villain. And I remember, I think the second superhero film that I saw that was live action, it was on TV. It wasn't X-Men. I wasn't into the X-Men movies just yet, but it was Batman 1989. see if I can find it. It's a lot of Batman. And I think this and the Nightmare Before Christmas and Beetlejuice, like these movies got me into Tim Burton as well. So this was like the 1989 film starring Michael Keaton as Batman, Jack Nicholson as the Joker, and Basinger as Vicky Vale. And like I want to get back to like iconic soundtracks. So like Danny Elfman did the soundtracks for both Spider-Man and Batman. And to me, they always had a sense of wonder and fascination to them, like a sense of mystery to them. And like to me, I think his soundtrack for Spider-Man 2002 was better than Batman 1989, but I still love his Batman score. Sam Raimi also wanted it to be self-contained story. Yeah, listen, I'm an MCU fan, but I also like having those like contained solo films. I think that's why I look so fondly on not just the Raimi trilogy, but also the Nolan Dark Knight trilogy and the X-Men movies and the first Iron Man as well, because I like having those self-contained stories. But yeah, Batman 1989. I think this was on Cartoon Network or TNT. Can't remember where I first watched it on TV. But yeah, this was like I think the second live action superhero movie that I watched. And it was on TV, like I said, but I was fascinated by it. It was great to see Batman in live action. Okay, so Andrew says it's the perfect Batman movie. I don't know if for me personally, I don't know if I would call it the perfect Batman movie. I still love the movie. Like I do have a few issues with it. Like it feels more like a Joker movie at times than a Batman movie, but I still love the movie, and it's still a classic. With Burton's style, it's like one of those movies that I prefer watching in the fall, like the Halloween season, like when I want to rewatch the movie. Like this time of year is usually when I would rewatch Batman 1989. But yeah, Jack Nicholson was great as Joker. Michael Keaton was great as Batman, and I love the party man scene from that movie. Although the first Batman movie I remember watching, not in the theaters, was Batman Mask of the Phantasm. I was a big fan of the Batman animated series, and this was another movie that I loved watching. And basically, like this had the cast of the animated show: Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill. Let me see, Dana Delaney, who would later voice Lois Lane in the Superman animated show. Great voice cast. This was another film. This and Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Like these were the two Batman movies that I remember watching as a kid. Now, Batman Beyond never came out in theaters, but I remember that movie scared me as a kid. I don't know, something about like what the Joker put Robin through. Like I didn't realize how dark some of these childhood movies were. Like Scooby Doo on Zombie Island, Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Tim Burton. Well, Tim Burton's also a gothic director. Like if you see his work, like he's very gothic with his work. So it would make perfect sense that he would direct a Batman movie. So yeah, these were like some of the early movies that I was getting into. And a lot of movies, like I said before, I would go to the movies on Sundays with my dad to watch. Some of them he fell asleep during. I remember the Hey Arnold movie was a movie he fell asleep during, and I remember running up and down the aisle trying to wake him up because he was like dead asleep. Yeah, there are a lot of movies based on animated shows I remember watching in theaters. The Wild Thornberrys movie, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, the Hey Arnold movie, the Rugrat movies. Yeah, Mask of the Phantasm is a fantastic movie in my opinion. And yeah, the voice acting is great in there as well, Andrew. But like when it came to watching movies with my dad, eventually good things had to come to an end. So back in 2005, he unfortunately passed away due to lung cancer. So I remember the last movies that I saw with him in theaters. The last Pixar movie I saw with him in theaters was The Incredibles. Pull it up, which is ironic because it was like a superhero family movie. Yeah, I remember watching The Incredibles with him in theaters. That was the last Pixar movie we saw together, and I love this movie. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. Yeah, if you never saw The Incredibles, go watch it. And also Madagascar. That was the official last movie I remember watching with him before his cancer got worse, and he had to go to the hospital, and then he later passed away later that year. And it's been 17 years. His death anniversary was September 8th, so it was like 4 days ago. Yeah, The Incredibles was a fantastic movie. Yeah, the Fantastic Four movie we should have gotten. Yeah, this is my second favorite Pixar movie. It's also one of those key movies that was very important because it meant so much. Being the last Pixar movie I saw with my dad. And Madagascar, the movie Madagascar stands out to me so well because, like I said, that was the last movie I saw with him. It wasn't like the best movie, but I still enjoy this movie, and yeah, that's the special place this movie has in my heart. That it was that last movie I got to see with him in theaters before things got worse. And there was another movie in 2005 that's very important that I didn't see in theaters, but I remember winning at one of those Halloween parties we used to have in my old community, and it was the movie that kind of helped me grieve my dad. It was Batman Begins. So Batman Begins came out that summer. I didn't see it in theaters, but I remember we won Begins at a Halloween party, and it was the movie that helped me get through what was a tough time. And I guess Bruce Wayne's father did die in this film as well, but also it was the character Commissioner Gordon, Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon, and just how similar he kind of looked to my dad at the time. He had like the mustache. This had a great cast as well. Film. So let's see if I can find any pictures. I want to find a good picture. No, there's no good pictures. This is the best, but yeah, the mustache, it's not the best picture, but the mustache was kind of similar. And remember him comforting a young Bruce Wayne whose parents just died. Like even as a kid, that scene to me always meant a lot to me as a kid. And I think it helped me grieve my father's death. Like when it came to movies that helped me cope. And Bruce Wayne, he was like around the same age that I was in that film, like 8 years old. Like I was 8, almost 9 when my father passed away. But no, I still kept on watching movies after that. And I'm just gonna look at the chat real quick before we continue on. Yeah, I like the character Mr. Incredible, and I like the family. Jason Lee as Syndrome. See, here's the thing. I didn't realize that was Jason Lee until just recently. So on my channel, I've been rewatching Kevin Smith films, and Jason Lee was in a lot of Kevin Smith movies. And I was like, now it makes perfect sense. Also, Jason Lee was Dave Seville in those Alvin and Chipmunk movies that we're not going to talk about on this stream. Yo, he was Syndrome was the original Mysterio on the big screen. Yeah, that's fine. Listen, I don't know if it's much of a hot take anymore, Andrew, because I know there's a lot of people that seem to love Batman Begins over The Dark Knight. Yeah, it definitely had the best Gotham. He was at his best. Yeah, Christian Bale was at his best being Batman. And yeah, Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul was one of the best villains, underrated villain. And Hans Zimmer had a great score as well. That I agree with you. This was my favorite origin story as far as origin superhero movies go. But yeah, Batman Begins, this was a very important film to me. And there's just some movies that just stick out to you. Like theater, and whether you watch them at home for the first time, you watch them at a friend's house, you watch them at a movie club, or You know, like you remember the theater experience. Like there's just certain movies that are always gonna stick out. And another movie, and so I'm gonna like skip a few years actually because this was where like I really got into watching movies. So when I was in middle school in sixth grade, we had a movie club, and there were like certain movies that we would watch. And one of my favorite, and like it introduced me to some of my favorite movies. Like one of the first movies we got to watch was, let me find it, was Rear Window with Alfred Hitchcock. And this is what helped me get into old movies. Yeah, it was middle school that like I watched a lot of different kinds of movies than I was watching. And I remember James Stewart. I also watched It's a Wonderful Life this year as well for the first time. So I was introduced to like James Stewart as an actor. And I just remember being fascinated by this movie, even though it was an older movie, and just the mystery about it. And honestly, I can see myself like being that way, like watching through the window, seeing what's going on in my neighborhood. Like not like spying, but like I can see myself like if I ever had like broken legs, like being bored, and if I see something suspicious, I want to know what's going on. But yeah, this was a fascinating movie. Another movie that I was introduced to this year was The Karate Kid. And Kid is another one of my all-time favorite films, the one with William Zabka and Ralph Macchio. And yeah, these are movies that are up there with, you know, the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, that are up there with movies like The Mummy, Batman Begins, Toy Story, Shrek, movies that I watch so many times throughout the years. And I just remember I love the bond between Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. Like Ralph Macchio, for goodness sakes, Ralph Macchio was in his 20s when these movies were being made, and he looked like he was like a decade younger. Uh, William Zabka as Johnny Lawrence. Yo, he would have been the perfect Flash Thompson had they made a Spider-Man movie in the 80s. He really would have. But yeah, Rear Window, The Karate Kid, those are two movies that are amongst some of my favorites that I watched. And yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah, it was also around this time I was getting into Indiana Jones as well. Indiana Jones, Star Wars. Like I was really getting into the whole movie watching thing. And I remember with Star Wars for me, it was actually also watching the Clone Wars that helped me get into Star Wars. I watched the prequels, and I watched the original trilogy, and then I watched Indiana Jones. And I remember the first time I watched Temple of Doom. Like I'm gonna find Temple of Doom real quick. Temple of Doom used to like scare me. Like I rewatched it just recently, and like nowadays I like the movie a lot. But yeah, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, like this is one of those cases of a movie that the first time I watched it, I didn't like it. But then when I watched it a second time, I was like, oh, this is a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. So it is like, yeah, like this movie was very dark, and I think this movie is why we got the PG-13 rating. I'm pretty sure this is why we got PG-13 movies. Yeah, Indiana Jones, that was another franchise I was getting into at this time. And now, one other movie that we get into before I start talking about my theater experiences is Remember the Titans. This was another movie I watched at school, not a movie club, but we watched it. See, at my old school, the older kids who were doing extra state testing, and so in one of my classes, I had a teacher for 3 straight periods, and since we got like work done pretty early and we got caught up, we would watch Remember the Titans. And this film to me is probably one of my favorite sports movies ever. Like this and the original Rocky are two of my favorite all-time sports movies. And Denzel gave one of the best performances ever in this movie. Like I loved his performance as Coach Boone. And just like how this team came together, like really was an inspirational story for me. And I know there's some historical inaccuracies in there, but I still love this movie. And this is another movie that I've rewatched so many times in the last 13 to 14 years. And yeah, I do agree. And yeah, he's perfect as Indiana Jones and Han Solo. Yeah, as I said at the beginning of the stream, like I'm looking forward to Indiana Jones 5. It looks like Harrison Ford is as well. I can't wait for that movie. I really can. It's one of my top 5 most anticipated movies of next year. Yeah, Rocky is a fantastic movie. Like Rocky is probably one of my favorite movie characters. Like he's probably one of the most likable movie characters in my opinion. And I don't know, like I don't know if you saw Andrew. Like I was actually at the Rocky statue a month ago when I was visiting my sister, and I got a picture with the Rocky statue. Probably one of my favorite movies. Probably one of my top 10 favorite movies. Rocky. And honestly, I love all the sequels as well, except for Rocky 5. That was the one with Tommy Gunn. I I, I don't know. That movie just was not good, in my opinion. I rewatched Rocky Balboa last month as well, and that movie is also great. Like 60-year-old Rocky showing that he can still box. I love the Rocky movies. And I love the Rocky score as well, the Rocky soundtrack. There's a lot of great soundtracks to a lot of these movies, like Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Rocky, Spider Man, the Dark Knight trilogy, Tim Burton's Batman films. So I didn't sprint. I did run up the stairs, but it was like 90 degrees out, and like afterwards, I was asking myself, why did I do this? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I running up these stairs? It was fun though. It was fun. Yeah, and I did do the hands in the air. It was great. It was great to see the statue. But yeah, Rocky. Like I love Sylvester Stallone. He's one of my favorite actors. And he's got some of the best supporting characters in those movies. Characters like Adrian, Adrian. Every guy like Adrian's like the best female character in any film, in any of these films. Like Adrian keeps Rocky going. She's very supportive. Like she knows how to like snap him out of stuff. Like to me, like she is one of the most perfect, like one of the best female characters out there. Talia Shire did great as Adrian. Paulie, oh my goodness, Paulie, one of the best characters out there as well. I gotta find Rocky now. Find the original Rocky. And I remember like Sylvester Stallone, like he pinned this script himself. I'm pretty sure he did the script himself. I can't honestly remember. Oh, Berg Meredith. I don't know. So who played Mickey? I don't know if you guys know this. Um. Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I love Mickey. He was a great mentor. Andrew, I don't know if you know this, but the actor Burgess Meredith. I don't know if you know this. He was Penguin in the Adam West Batman show. I don't know if you know that or not. Like he was the Penguin in that show. Yeah, Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed was excellent. Like he was probably one of the best like rivals turned friends in any media. Like we see it all the time in shows, like people who turn off as antagonists or a rival that become an ally or friend. Like Apollo Creed's one of the best ones. I love in Rocky 3 that he was the one who was training Rocky after Mickey died. Oh, okay. I didn't know if you knew that or not. But yeah, he's been there a lot. Burt Young as Paulie, one of the favorite like side characters in a movie. Like he's another one that like knew Rocky so well. Like Rocky had like the best supporting cast around him, in my opinion. His wife Adrian, he had his best friend Paulie, his trainer Mickey, and then his trainer Apollo Creed. Like he had a great supporting cast around him. And I remember the first Rocky film I actually watched was in Movie Club, and it actually comes to Andrew's next thing. Apollo show Rocky as the Eye of the Tiger. Yeah, Rocky 3 was the first Rocky film I watched in full at Movie Club. And I remember my language arts teacher at the time, I still remember his name, Mr. Cooley, and he was actually a cool dude. He was one of my favorite teachers in middle school. That guy, like, he was a big movie guy as well, and he was in charge of Movie Club, and so he showed Rocky 3 to us. Now, here's the thing with my old movie club. We had a rule where we can only watch movies that were PG. We couldn't watch PG-13. We couldn't watch rated R. But a lot of these movies that came out before this, like movies like Rear Window, movies like The Karate Kid, movies like Rocky, they were PG at a time when it was either PG or rated R. So he got over a lot of those things. And hi, hey Arkham Gaming, what's up, man? Yeah, I'm just sharing like some of the movies that got me into movies. I brought up Batman 1989, Batman Begins. I brought up Batman Mask of the Phantasm and Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. I do want to get into a couple of the direct to video movies, actually. So I'm actually gonna start with Batman Beyond Return of the Joker because I remember watching this movie on TV with my dad on Toonami, and this movie really scared me. And like, here's the thing: I knew Batman Beyond because I used to watch Batman Beyond a lot as a kid. But the stuff that he put Joker through, and both the uncensored version and censored version, really frightened me as a kid. I was 4 years old when this film came out. Actually, no, it was it was like I was either 3 or 4. I don't know. I can't remember like what month exactly it came out. Yeah, I loved watching Batman Beyond, but this movie really scared me as a kid. But this was one of my favorite direct to video movies. And before I get to the next one, I'm gonna see what Andrew has to say. Uh, yeah, listen, Judgment Day is one of my top 20 favorite movies. It's one of the best sequels ever made. I love the first Terminator as well. Here's the interesting thing. I saw Judgment Day before I saw the first Terminator film. So Judgment Day like always has a special place in my heart because that was actually the first James Cameron movie that I watched. It wasn't even Titanic or Avatar, which were PG-13. It was actually Judgment Day, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And I don't know, seeing like little John Connor bonding with the Terminator, like to me, like it's stuff like that that I love in movies, like even in action movies. Those like small heartfelt moments. Yeah, it's definitely got horror movie vibes in 1984. See, that's the thing. Like the Terminator movies are kind of similar to the Alien movies, where the first one's more of a horror film, and then the second one's more action oriented. Yeah, the special effects work was great for that time. James Cameron's an awesome director, in my opinion. He really is. So I'm gonna get to the second direct to video movie that was pretty big for me as a kid, and that was Scooby Doo on Zombie Island. So I remember growing up watching the live action Scooby Doo movies. With October coming up, maybe I'll do a Scooby Doo stream or something. But Scooby Doo on Zombie Island was one of those movies that I watched a lot as a kid. Arkham, I completely understand that. Like, I remember, like, for me in college, running to the buses and stuff. Yeah, that's not fun. I completely understand that. I will say this: I will be doing these streams on the weekends after this one. I just wanted to get this stream done like during the week because I still have some free time left, and I'm not gonna have that free time soon anymore during the week. But on the weekends, I'll be doing the streams again on weekend days. Yeah. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Listen, another movie I'm gonna like talk about that was pretty big for me, like getting into movies. Does star Arnold. Once I'm done covering Scooby Doo in the chat. Yeah, I love the Bat. Yeah, to me, the Batman animated series is the Batman that I know. Like the same one that you see in Justice League Unlimited when he's comforting that kid Ace before she's about to die. Like, to me, this is Batman. This is the Batman that I grew up watching. This is my favorite version of Batman, Batman the Animated Series. They're guilty pleasures of mine, Andrew. I saw both those movies in theaters. I remember watching both those movies in theaters. Like, those movies they were a product of their time, of the early 2000s, with the music, with the style. Like, those were products of their time. But yeah, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, this was another childhood film. And this and Batman Beyond Return of the Joker were pretty dark movies for direct to video. Like, I didn't realize until as I got older how dark Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island was. Like, cat creatures that were killing people to stay alive for many years. Like, that's pretty dark for a children's movie. For a Scooby-Doo movie, I think this movie is darker than the live action Scooby-Doo movies. That might be an unpopular opinion, but I find Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island to be darker than the live action Scooby-Doo movies. Like, here's the thing, the live action Scooby-Doo movies have more adult humor. But here I think this movie has darker undertones because these cat creatures actually killed a lot of people throughout the years. Not just pirates that, caused a lot of pain for these people, but, they were killing tourists, they were killing settlers. And again, even before the people were becoming cat creatures in this movie, their friends got eaten by alligators in the water because the pirates chased them into the water. I gotta do a movie on Scooby-Doo, do a review on Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island this Halloween. I feel like I need to review this movie to share more because I want to get into other movie topics and I want to get to what Arkham's saying. Did you get scared when you saw Batman Beyond Return of the Joker? What scared me was what happened to Robin. Like what Robin went through. Like Robin becoming a mini Joker and then getting tortured. And then here's the thing. I can't remember if Toonami showed. I can't remember what version Toonami showed because I remember I watched it for the first time on Toonami before I got it on DVD. The one version where Joker gets electrocuted. That scared me as a kid, hearing his screams of terror. And then seeing like little mini Robin Joker crying after Joker's killed. Like, this was a pretty dark movie, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. And this is another movie I like to watch around the Halloween season. It just feels like it fits the vibe. It's not the scariest children's movie. I think Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island actually is now more terrifying as I've gotten older, now realize things that kind of flew over my head. But yeah, another movie I will mention before I start getting into my movie theater experiences is going to be Jingle All the Way starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Because this was the movie that actually got me into watching live action holiday films. I mean, yeah, I watched the Santa Claus movies, but this was the film that if it wasn't for this film, I don't know if I would have ever have watched Home Alone as a kid. But yeah, Jingle All the Way. And I have to thank I remember my former basketball coach when he was my health teacher in elementary school. He would show this movie to us before we went on Christmas break. So like in 4th and 5th grade, like in health class, before we went on Christmas break, we watched Jingle All the Way. And I love this movie. I used to find this movie to be hilarious. Like, here's the thing. Like, to me, I feel like a lot of people can relate to Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Howard. And also you had him competing with Myron the Postman, played by Sinbad. And this was one of the last movies actually Phil Hartman was in. Rest in peace. But yeah, I used to find this movie hilarious. Like them trying to find the Turbo Man doll. Like it's not that good of a movie, but it's a holiday classic. This and Home Alone to me are like the two movies I need to watch every year. Yeah, I think I used to watch Wallace and Gromit on TV as well as a kid. I think I watched it once with my dad. The Were Rabbit film I remember watching for the first time during standardized testing at my elementary school. Like so after the standardized testing in the morning, our teachers would let us watch movies for the rest of the day because it was a lot. Yeah, I love Jingle All the Way. I don't care. Like, could it be a stupid movie at times? Yeah, but it is so funny, and I always need to watch this, Home Alone, A Christmas Story, and It's a Wonderful Life around every year. That's a weird combination of movies, but I need to watch them. And yeah, Home Alone I got into pretty late in the game. That was another film I was introduced to at movie club. Actually, I'll cover Home Alone before I start talking about theater experiences. Yeah, it's so funny. The same year that I saw Rear Window, Karate Kid, and Remember the Titans, I also saw Home Alone. It's like 2008, 2009, that time period introduced me to a lot of my favorite movies. And Home Alone was another one of them. Yeah, Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern, Macaulay Culkin. Catherine O'Hara, she's in a lot of Tim Burton movies. Like, she was in Beetlejuice as well. That's another favorite of mine, Beetlejuice. Another film I watched around this time period. Michael Keaton was great in that film as well. But yeah, a lot of these movies from like the 80s, like I was introduced to as like a preteen in my late kid years. Yeah, that was a funny scene. The Santa warehouse scene, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, a lot of these movies were movies that opened me up to checking out other movies. Like if it hadn't been for The Karate Kid, for example, one of the all-time favorite movies of mine from like the 80s, I don't think I would have been as open to watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which became another favorite of mine. Or later on The Breakfast Club, which was a movie I finally watched at my movie club in high school. And another classic was Singing in the Rain. That was another old film that I loved watching. And these are movies that I still watch today. And like if I ever do a stream on like my favorite movies, like you're gonna probably see a lot of these movies on that list. Maybe down the road I will, but these are the movies that helped get me into movies, that opened me up to other movies stream. And now we will start getting into the theater experiences. So I'm gonna start with, hold on. Yeah, The Mask. That was another good comedy film from the 90s. And that was another film that I watched for the first time around this time period. So let's get to the theater experiences. So Toy Story 2 was the first film I remember seeing in theaters. Shrek and Harry Potter were also great theater experiences of mine. So I'm going to get into the ones that I mostly remember. So I'm going to get into the 2007 film Transformers. Now, I actually did a review on this recently because it's been 15 years since Transformers came out. And yeah, the sequels are not good, but I love the first Transformers movie. I remember watching this in theaters and being in amazement of seeing Optimus Prime, Megatron, Bumblebee on the big screen for the first time in live action. Yeah, I thought the action was cool. The special effects were cool. Shia LaBeouf, I know he's gotten into a lot of trouble lately, but at the time, Shia LaBeouf, he was actually very good in this film. And Josh Duhamel and Tyrese, like these guys were awesome in this movie. Like they were my favorite human characters. But yeah, it was such a cool experience, and this was the film that introduced me to Linkin Park. So let me see if I see about another one that I remember. A film that came out the same year, and I know it's not looked upon all that well, but honestly, I enjoy this movie. Spider-Man 3. I remember watching this movie in theaters, and I remember enjoying it and finding Black Suit Spider-Man to be super cool. I was 10 years old when this film came out. It was cool to see Venom on the big screen, although I wish they did better with Venom in this film. But yeah, I remember watching this. I think I watched this in the same theater. It was like a theater at a nearby mall that we watched Spider-Man 3 and Transformers. But yeah, I remember I was very sad when Harry died. I think that was one of the first times I cried in a movie theater or was about to cry was when Harry Osborn died. Because like it felt like the franchise was leading up to this moment, and to see like Peter's best friend after spending so long hating him, and then they finally get their friendship back together. And you know what? The thing is that people at the time in the theater, they didn't even hate the Bully Maguire stuff. I wonder if there's any pictures of that, like of him dancing in the streets. I think people found that funny. Yeah, Black Suit Spider Man. Those were the days. That was that was cool to see on the big screen. So I'm gonna talk about another Spider Man movie that I had a good fun experience watching. And that was the Amazing Spider Man. And I know it's not the best Spider Man movie. But this was the first and only Spider-Man movie I watched in 3D, and the 3D was actually really good for this movie. I'm not gonna lie, it actually looked really good in 3D, and I think that really helped the experience the first time. Like now, when I rewatch it, I do enjoy it, I do like it, but I don't like it as much as some of the other Spider-Man movies. But the theater experience was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was a good end to the trilogy. Yeah, Harry and Sammy I thought were fine. I just wish they saved Venom for a Spider-Man 4. Set him up in this film and then saved him for a fourth film. But it is what it is. Yeah, Sandman killing Uncle Ben. I felt like that was just an add-on to add rage to the black suit Spider-Man. But yeah, Amazing Spider-Man. This was the film I remember in watching in 3D. Yeah, it's a good movie. Yeah, Emma Stone as Gwen was great in those films. I like Andrew Garfield in those films as well. I thought he was great as well. I just wish he had better material to work with in both movies. Like, here's the thing: like, you can be a fan of all the Spider-Man or a fan of two of the live-action Spider-Man, or think at least like one is good, or like certain films. Like, it's fine to like multiple versions. But yeah, the first Spider-Man film was Amazing Spider-Man film was good. But before that, the Avengers was the theater experience that I remember that stood out. I think I watched this film in theaters in 3D as well, like when it came out. I remember like like this was like one of those few times like one of the like the audience was like applauding the film, like we're cheering for the film. Like audience applauses like in cheering, that didn't become a thing until like the early 2010s, because there were two other movies I remember people were doing that in, and it was Toy Story 3 and Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2. But yeah, the Avengers, just seeing all the heroes, like seeing Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, and Thor on the big screen for the first time, it was awesome. You know, Robert Downey Jr. is great. Tom Hiddleston's great as Loki. Um, like this was a lot of fun to watch in theaters. And I know people like Josh Whedon. I know like Josh Whedon's become very controversial. And yeah, what he did to Ray Fisher sucked, and what he did to some of the other cast members, like I heard he was like he treated Gal Gadot like trash. Like that's very wrong as well. But I still love the first Avengers film. It's not my favorite MCU movie, but it's in my top 10. And yeah, I think the 3D for this film was pretty good as well. So I actually got two films that came out before us that I want to get into before I get into the next films. So Toy Story 3. Toy Story 3, I remember this film was very emotional to watch in theaters. Like people were crying in the theaters when this film came out. I remember I was crying, like the adults were crying. Because like Andy's growing up, he's going to college. The toys don't know what they're gonna do. Is Woody gonna leave them, or like are they gonna stay at Sunnyside? Or are they gonna die in that fire at the garbage dump? And then like when Andy gives his toys to Bonnie, like that was very emotional. Like this was, I think, probably the second time I cried in the theater. Toy Story 3 was one of those times that like I was just bawling in the theater and there was an applause at the end. I think this was the first time I remember people clapping at the end of a movie. This I feel like was my earliest memory. Yeah, it was one of the best movies of 2012. Iron Man 2008. Yeah, yeah, that was another fantastic movie. Yeah, I understand we want Edward Norton. I will say this though, this was probably the best Mark Ruffalo was as Bruce Banner in the Hulk. This was probably his best performance. I don't know why though they changed his character. I thought what they had with Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk in the first Avengers was good. Well, actually, no, not good, great. And I just don't know why they just didn't build upon that. It could be because of Universal. The whole situation is weird. I don't know. It's like they had something great with Mark Ruffalo as Hulk in here, and like they turned his character more comedic afterwards. I don't know. Yeah, like I still like Toy Story 4 a lot, but it felt like Toy Story 3 was a perfect ending. Yeah, Ken was voiced by one of your favorite actors, Michael Keaton, as well. So like he was also great right in there. The Toy Story movies always had great voice acting. But yeah, the score in that film was very emotional. So now to the other early emotional theater experience. So Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2. I remember this was another film that I got very emotional with because it was the end of the Harry Potter movies, and you're gonna see some of your favorite characters die. Snape's memories. Alan Rickman as Snape was fantastic in these movies, and his memories, like that was very sad. And then you see the 19 years later thing when Harry, Ron, Hermione, they're adults and they're sending their kids off to Hogwarts, and you have like the theme from the ending of the first two Harry Potter films, and it's like it's really the end of an era, Harry Potter, and it's kind of weird. I'll say this: the main Harry Potter movies end as soon as like the MCU really picks up, because a year after Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 came out, Avengers came out a year afterwards. So it was like, okay, one big franchise is ending, one big franchise is now really getting started. Like, yeah, you had other movies in phase one, but it was the Avengers that really took this thing to a whole other level. But yeah, Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2. I remember there was clapping during this, like people were emotional during this. And this was, I think, the only Harry Potter film I ever saw in 3D as well. 3D was very popular in the early 2010s. That I remember. And Toy Story 3 I also saw in 3D. So I'm gonna get into some more theater experience. I'm gonna get into some more recent ones. Um, I will say I do want to get into one movie that's kind of as important or almost as important as Madagascar was, and that was Ant Man. Because Ant Man was the last movie that I saw when I lived in Pennsylvania in theaters, and it was the last movie that I saw with some of my best friends. Like we saw like quite a few movies together, like me and my friends, Pacific Rim, X-Men: Days of Future Past. But Ant Man, this was the last movie I saw with my closest friends back in Pennsylvania. Yeah, it's not the best MCU movie, although I do enjoy this movie a lot. But it always resonates with me as the last movie that I saw in theaters back home. Last movie I saw my best friends in theaters, and I think that's what made it more fun the first time watching it. Like it's a fun movie, the first Ant Man, and the character Lewis in this film, that character was very hilarious. Michael Pena's character Lewis, like his stories were very, very hilarious. It's not the best MCU movie, but you know what? The first Ant Man holds a special place in my heart because it was the last movie that I saw with my closest friends before I moved. So, okay, so let's get into some more recent theater experiences. I'm only going to cover the ones that are very special, and then I'm going to cover the ones that were kind of bad, and then we're going to end the stream. So, Avengers Endgame was probably the other theater experience that people went nuts for. I remember, people were like clapping, cheering, especially at the end during the end credits. I was tearing up at the end because Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, one of my favorite movie characters, and it's like his end, and then like the stuff with like Steve Rogers retiring at the end, like like this was probably the most emotional MCU movie for me, one of the most emotional MCU movies. Yeah, Ant-Man's a funny movie. Yeah, it was a really good cast. Yellow Jacket was a fine villain. Yeah, it was a funny movie. But yeah, Endgame, man, I was tearing up like twice in this film. The first time when like it was official that Iron Man was dead, and then the second one was during his funeral, his send off. Yeah, I remember the cheers during the portal scene when all the heroes are coming back. They're coming to help save the day. That was a lot of fun to watch. Probably one of my favorite movie theater experiences. I remember we watched it that Saturday night. It didn't feel like 3 hours. Like it's a 3 hour movie. It didn't feel like 3 hours. Yeah, it was a sad send off for Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans as Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Professor Hulk. Here's the thing: the Fat Thor stuff I don't mind because at this point, Thor like how hasn't Thor been broken at this point? And I feel like he needed a breaking point, and this was probably it. It's the Professor Hulk stuff that I'm not really that fond of. But it was a great ending to 10 years of the MCU. And look, I understand why for a lot of people they jumped shark after this because to them this was truly the end of the MCU. Like for some people, this was like the end for them. I will say the one death that nobody saw, I don't think I saw it coming, was Natasha Romanoff's death, Scarlett Johansson, and like she's another one of my favorite characters in these films. So yeah, the theater experience was a lot of fun with this one. I remember all the clapping and cheering, especially like when they were presenting the 6 original actors. Like the theater went nuts when Robert Downey Jr.'s signature came up, and it's like I wish he could be there to hear it, just so like he knows how far he had come since like the days when like he was going through struggles when he was doing drugs and was getting arrested. Like he has come a long way and has become one of the most beloved actors in Hollywood. All right, so the next theater experiences, at least the good ones, they're going to be more recent. So we're going to start with Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh my goodness. Spider-Man No Way Home. Probably one of the few movies I actually saw on opening night or opening day. Actually, like I saw Thursday after, like late Thursday afternoon, like not even opening day. Like my theater bumped up these screenings to like 3 p.m. the day before, and I got to like get a good see for the screen. But yeah, seeing all 3 Spider-Man on the big screen together, seeing Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield return. Like Tobey Maguire was my childhood Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was my teenage year Spider-Man. Tom Holland is my college to adult year Spider-Man. So just seeing all 3 of them on the big screen together, seeing Andrew Garfield get his shot at redemption, seeing Tobey Maguire in a movie again after many years, not just Spider-Man, but just being in a movie, seeing 2 of my favorite villains in Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock. Like I had a smile on my face for this movie, except for the sad parts, of course, because Aunt May died in this film. That was very sad, and then everyone forgot who Peter Parker was. That was pretty sad as well. But for most of the movie, like it was like I loved it. I enjoyed every second of it. Yeah, 20 years of Spider-Man films, basically. Yeah, I think this is gonna push Tom Holland's Spider-Man in a different direction. I think after this. I didn't see the extended version. Honestly, I don't think the 11 minutes from what I've seen online and heard is worth going to see in theaters again. And plus, I have the movie on DVD, and like I love the movie as it is, so I can watch the movie anytime I want. This is also one of the few movies that I've seen in theaters twice. Of course, like I went back to go see it the second time because my mom wanted to go see it, and she enjoyed it as well. Although she was also sad Aunt May died in the film as well. But yeah, seeing Tobey Maguire back after 14 years was a dream come true. And Willem Dafoe, Here's the thing, like seeing his facial expressions as Green Goblin without the mask, like it would have been cool to see the mask, but it's like seeing him like get into character, be that lively was very crazy and insane, and he did phenomenal. Like, here's the thing, like all three Spider-Man actors were terrific in this film. Jamie Foxx, he got a shot of redemption in this film. I thought he was much better in this film than Amazing Spider-Man 2. Alfred Molina was still great. Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin was easily my favorite performance in this entire movie. Easily. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to watch. The audience was great. Everyone's clapping and cheering. Clapping and cheering when Andrew comes on, and then when Toby comes on, it's just like phenomenal. Even when Charlie Cox appeared, people were clapping and cheering. Yeah, I get it. I get you. Yeah, Uncle Ben's death in Spider-Man 2002 is still sad. Here's the thing: I feel like every Spider-Man film, when someone dies, really hit me emotionally. Like I remember Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was very sad when Gwen Stacy died, and I remember someone sitting behind me was sobbing when Gwen Stacy died in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like they were like sobbing. I didn't hear that with this film, but yeah, Arkham. Andrew Spider-Man had his redemption in this film. He did. Like, here's the thing. I want to see these three back on the big screen together. Like, I will probably do a stream about the future of Spider-Man movies, not just Tom Holland, but also like Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, the Sony movies. Like, one day I want to do a stream like that. I want to see Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire return, not just for like Secret Wars, but I want to see like Andrew Garfield like face off against Tom Hardy's Venom. I think he's perfect to face off in that universe. He fits that universe, I feel like. But also, I want to see Tobey Spider-Man. And I think part of it is because we've seen young Spider-Man done on the big screen so many times. I want to see like an older take of Spider-Man, not just in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animated movies like we saw in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but like a Spider-Man that like is older, that has so many years of experience. Like with Tobey Maguire, you can do like I feel like you can do a Spider-Man 4 where him and Mary Jane, they're a family, they're married, they have a daughter, and like maybe the daughter is getting spider powers, and Peter's trying to teach her how to, control those powers and maybe pass on the torch. Like I would like to see that kind of Spider-Man movie done instead of like the same high school college stories that we tend to get. I mean, I guess it's like a slow build-up, you would say. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think Avia Red. There was a rumor that Avia Red played a role in what happened with some of the decisions in Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies. For example, like the original plan for Spider-Man Far From Home was to have Uncle Ben's grave during the Mysterio illusion scene, and like have it where like Peter feels like he's betraying Uncle Ben's memory by feeling like he replaced him with Tony Stark. I think that was an original idea, but Avia Red scraped that idea. I think there also in Spider-Man Homecoming, the stuff with the ferry boat. Apparently, in the original version of the ferry boat scene, Tom Spider-Man actually came out looking better after that instead of screwing things up. But I think Avia Red pushed for him to mess up. Yeah, I would like to see the multiverse Spider-Mans in Secret Wars. Oh gosh. No, no, no. Block user. I ain't dealing with this. For those of you who are watching, I don't know if you saw the chat. But yeah, we got spammers were in my chat just now. I've seen some of these spammers in Mad Max's chat if you guys ever watch Mad Max's streams. But yeah, no, I ain't putting up with that in my chat. Go touch grass. Don't be spamming. Don't be wasting people's times. But yeah, that would have been way better. Like I like Spider-Man Far From Home a lot. I do like Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies, not as much as Tobey's first two Spider-Man movies. But I don't know why. Like, here's the thing: I think Avi Arad or someone from Sony really wanted that MCU influence in the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. So I can't really blame the actors and stuff for what happened, even though I think the actors did a very good job, in my opinion. But yeah, no, Spider-Man No Way Home. This was a fun movie to watch in theaters twice. I love this movie. The more I think about it, the more I rewatch it. The fight scenes are great. Had some of the best action sequences in the MCU Spider-Man movies. Yeah, I love this movie. And yeah, this was one of the best theater experiences I had. So I'm gonna get to the other one. Actually, there's one interesting theater experience I want to share before I get to my next film, and that was A Quiet Place Part Two. Like, this came out actually months before months before No Way Home. So basically, with A Quiet Place Part Two, when I saw this movie, it came out like a couple weeks. It was a couple weeks after it came out. I was the only one in the theater watching this movie, so I'm watching this like horror film, even though it's not like a horror film, all alone in the theater, and it made the experience more interesting. I just wanted to share that real quick. Like, this was one of those few times that like I actually was the only one in the theater, and it actually made the experience a lot more fun. And I was in an Apex theater where the sound is a lot bigger. But yeah, this was one of the more interesting experiences. So I got two more good theater experiences. Then I'm gonna share the bad ones, and I've got a few bad ones to share because I don't want to keep going on this for too long. So Top Gun Maverick. So to me, this was the most fun I had in the theaters. Let me get to Arkham. What's the most time I watched a movie in the movie theater? Probably twice. So there's quite a few movies that I've seen twice in theaters. So Toy Story 2, I saw twice in theaters. The first time was when I was 3 years old. The second time in 2009, Toy Story and Toy Story 2 came out in theaters together in 3D to help promote Toy Story 3. So I saw Toy Story 2 twice technically in theaters. Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, I saw twice in theaters. Don't ask why. I was a silly preteen kid. Spider-Man No Way Home, I saw twice in theaters. And Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I've seen twice in theaters. Usually 2 is enough for me. And Multiverse of Madness, it was kind of the same thing. Like, I like that movie a lot, but I did it twice in theaters as well because my mom wanted to go see it as well. And when I saw it for the second time, saw it for the first time, sorry, I saw it by myself. Top Gun 2, surprising. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting this to be one of my favorite movies post pandemic. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to watch in theaters. I always enjoyed the original Top Gun, but Top Gun Maverick, the work they did with this film was phenomenal. And it 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 deserves every penny that it got worldwide and domestically. And probably my favorite movie starring Tom Cruise. But yeah, Miles Teller was excellent in this film. Jennifer Connelly was great as well. Glenn Powell, Val Kilmer. The stuff with Val Kilmer, I'm not going to spoil anything for those who didn't see Top Gun Maverick. That was very emotional. But yeah, Top Gun Maverick, this was probably like of my top 3 theater experiences after shutdown with the movies reopening. This and Spider-Man No Way Home are up there as my 2 favorite movie theater experiences post pandemic. And the third one was a movie I recently watched and is actually my most watched video on this channel, Jaws. So Labor Day weekend, that Saturday was National Cinema Day, $3 tickets. So I saw Jaws in IMAX, and it looked fantastic in IMAX. It looked fantastic on the big screen. I saw Jaws many times on TV before I watched this in theaters. But yeah, and it's kind of surprising, and I'll explain why when I get into the bad movie theater experiences, that the audience was very quiet. They're having great, well, not very quiet, but they're having a great time. They're actually laughing and like, gasping when it was appropriate. No one was like talking when they shouldn't be talking. Like this was a lot of fun to watch in theaters, and this is one of my top 5 favorite Steven Spielberg movies. I think it's still playing in IMAX in some theaters. So yeah, if you didn't see Jaws, go check it out. The theater experience was fun. And one of my friends from college, he had said he had saw Jaws later that same day, and he did not have a fun theater experience. People were talking and being noisy. The complete opposite of my theater experience. Yeah. Yeah, Brody, another one of my favorite movie characters. Yeah, one of my top 5 favorite Steven Spielberg movies. My probably my favorite film of Spielberg's. My 2 favorite of his are probably Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I've rewatched those movies several times. But yeah, I love those movies. I think they're great movies to watch. Spielberg's a great director in general. But yeah, Jaws, easily one of his top 5 favorite films of his ever made. Definitely one of his top 5 best movies ever made. So now let's get into some of the worst theater experiences. And I'm only going to get into a few because I'm going to end this soon. So the first one was when I saw The Revenant in theaters years ago with my cousin. Some lady was talking, was not like being quiet, she's being very rude. And I was watching this movie. It was me and my mom, my cousins, my aunt, and finally my cousin like turned around and said to her, "Do you mind?" And The Revenant is a great movie. That was like the movie Leo finally won his Oscar for. But yeah, some lady was just she just wasn't would not stop talking behind us. Now the other not so fun theater experience. This one I'm not so annoyed at because the movie wasn't all that great. And in fairness, it was children. It was Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And basically what had happened was I guess it was a birthday party, and these kids in the row wouldn't stop talking. But you know what? It's children. I can't really get annoyed at children for talking in theater. It's actually more so the parents that you get annoyed with because you would hope like the adults could maybe I don't know say something. But also the movie wasn't all that great, so you know what? I didn't really mind it as much. And compared to the Revenant situation when the lady knew what she was doing and knew better, I'm not gonna really be annoyed at the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom theater experience. But these were ones that happened more recently. So the first time I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and I'll bring up Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The first time I saw this film, so it was the same theater that I saw Jaws in. It was an AMC at the mall by me. So that's why I was so surprised with how that Jaws turned out to be good because, well, not the movie, but the theater experience. Because what happened was at the beginning of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, someone was playing with one of those like laser lights, like, and like they're pointing at the screen. They're pointing their laser at the screen, and it was so annoying. Like for that first 5 to 10 minutes, and like people were getting annoyed, people were yelling, and you're worried like a fight's gonna break out in the theater at the beginning of the movie. And it's like you're waiting for this movie for many months, and it's gonna get ruined because a fight's gonna break out because some jerk is ruining it for the rest of us. Like that's not fun. So yeah, that was an unpleasant experience. Now, luckily, after like the first 10 minutes, nobody was messing around. But yeah, I don't know why some people do that. I don't know why people have to point their laser pointers at the screen and distract the movie. So the other one that recently happened, it was another Marvel movie. And by the way, I did see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. When I saw it the second time, I saw it in the theater I usually go to for movies, and I had a much better experience there. But the other one was when I saw Thor: Love and Thunder. So what had happened was during Thor: Love and Thunder, this lady that was sitting by me and my mom, she just would not stop talking. And before I continue, because it's gonna be a long story, Andrew Casale, Doctor Strange 2 was a good movie. Love Sam Raimi's style and horror. Seeing Patrick Stewart. Yeah, no, I love Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Um, I think it's better than the first film. I think it's one of the more underrated MCU movies. It's my third favorite movie in Phase 4 after No Way Home and Shang-Chi. And yeah, it's great to see Patrick Stewart again, especially in the yellow chair. John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, that was pretty cool to see. Yeah, it felt more like a Wanda story than Strange story at times. But here's the thing, I love both Doctor Strange and Wanda, so it's always great to see these characters on the big screen. And but back to like what was happening with me with Thor Love and Thunder. So this lady that was sitting by me and my mom was talking throughout the whole movie, commenting on everything that was on the big screen. And it was getting annoying. And then all of a sudden, during the movie, she gets out of her seat. She's walking around the theater. She opens the exit door. So, like, the exit door basically lets you outside. And so you got the light from outside coming in. She's walking around the theater saying, "Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me." When she's coming back to sit in our row, she's like going, "Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me." She goes back to her seat. She's still talking again. And I mean, if there was something wrong with her, I can understand that. But if there wasn't, I don't know why she was talking during the movie, why she was getting up, walking around. And I don't know why the guy that was with her at the movies wasn't like telling her to, sit down or to please like not talk as much. Other people are watching the movie. And so when me and my mom exit the movie theater, she's like telling me like that lady would not stop talking. And it's like it's twice like the last two Marvel movies, someone's trying to ruin it for the rest of us by talking or being disruptive. And that's not fun. Like here's the thing. And it's adults. Like you're saying, I don't mind it when kids do it because it's kids. I mean, yeah, parents should tell the kids, don't talk during the movie, please. But you know what? I understand kids are curious about the movie. Like I remember when I saw Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug in theaters, there was a kid sitting behind us that was asking his father questions about the movie because the father knows about Hobbit lore and stuff. So like I don't mind that because sometimes I was kind of the same way with my father when watching movies. But when an adult is constantly talking, purposely disrupting things in the theater, pointing a laser pointer, and then rambling on throughout the movie, and then going through each row, wandering around the theater, opening the exit door, that's annoying. Thor: Love and Thunder was horrible. Thor has turned into a complete joke. Then how badass he was in 2011, Thirst 4 wasted. I mean, I liked Christian Bale's gore. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's like the more I think about the less I like the film. It's like I don't know. I feel like Taika Waititi has not outlived, but like has outstayed his welcome in the MCU, and I'm glad he's not going to be directing anymore. Like, here's the thing: there's a difference between James Gunn's style and Taika's style, per se. Like James Gunn, like he has a great balance of humor and actually heartfelt moments in his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Same thing with the Suicide Squad. But Taika, I don't know. Like I like Thor Ragnarok, but I don't know. It felt like he just overdid it in Love and Thunder. But yeah, no, the lady just like during the watching Thor Love and Thunder, she just really, really made it an unpleasant theater experience. I'm trying to see if I remember any other ones that stick out. No, I think that's kind of it. Like I've only really had a few bad movie theater experiences. Like we've had some pretty good ones as well. I remember watching Batman versus Superman in theaters on opening day. That was fun to watch, even though the movie wasn't all that great. No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's as bad as Batman and Robin. They did overdo the Thor Ragnarok comedy though. That you're right about, Andrew. They did overuse the the comedy from Thor Ragnarok. Although I won't compare it to Batman and Robin. But yeah, I think that's kind of it with good and bad theater experiences. And I think this is a perfect time to end the stream because, again, I can't think of any other bad theater experiences or really good ones that stick out. I mean, I will say when I saw No Time to Die, that was probably the first time like I cried in a theater post pandemic. Like that was probably like the most heartfelt film because it was Daniel Craig's send off as James Bond and his ending in that film and like what he had gone through in that film. Like that was an emotional film for me. But I think other than that, there's nothing else that really sticks out in recent. And yeah, I'm gonna end the stream right here. So I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And I hope you guys understand what kind of movies that I've been watching for so many years. What kind of theater experiences resonate with me? What movies resonate with me? And what theater experiences, regardless of how much I love the movie or like them or dislike the movie, kind of annoyed me. But again, I'm not one of those people that's gonna get annoyed very easily and whine about it constantly. Because at the end of the day, we move past it, and I've had so many great theater experiences. And thank you, Andrew. It means a lot, having support. But yeah, I've had so many positive theater experiences that the good outweighs the bad. And I miss going to the theaters like after COVID. And I'm glad that I've had so many great theater experiences since we returned to the theaters. And I hope to continue having more. We got some more movies coming out this year. We got a ton of movies coming out next year. And like we got so many other movies coming out these next few years. So I'm hoping we can get some more great theater experiences in. So in the meantime, guys, I hope just a reminder, the streams will start happening on weekends. Maybe I'll do a stream this weekend on the MCU on Marvel. And I'm hoping to see Clerks 3 sometime this week and do a review on that. So stay tuned for those. And in the meantime, take care. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. And if you didn't watch this live, catch it on the replay. Like and subscribe already if you haven't. And share us with someone that is into movies, that has maybe some similar theater experiences or similar movie experiences. And I'll see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone. Okay, how do we end this?